Now, I'll tell you, I need to be honest, is every Dominican of the East Coast province that's listening to me right now thinks that I should probably be denounced to a ecumenical council and probably burn at the stake.
Hey, how's everybody doing? It's glad to be back. It's been a minute. How are you doing, Dende?
Are we live? Are we live right now?
Oh, yes. And this area great. Magister Bessarion, he will be here. Wait, Dende, I hear a little playback on your end.
Huh?
So I'm just gonna mute you real quick. Okay, yeah. So I hear a little playback on your end. I'll unmute you a little bit later. So yes, Bessarion will be here. So we're going to be going over a video that was posted on Reason and Theology. Father Kappes, I keep saying his name wrong. I'm sorry. I already got into the rhythm of saying your name like that. Much apologies. You can call me Wagner if you want, even though my last name's Wagner. So it was on Reason and Theology. Father Kappes talking about beatific vision, and then the Franciscan Palomist view, some things about St. Thomas, as you saw. Dominicans of the East Province want you denounced an ecumenical council and burned at the stake. I don't think I'll be saying that, but I just want everybody to remember before we start that we are all laymen. Father Kappes is a priest. I don't want to see any of you guys being rude to him because he's a priest. And if you have a good examination of conscience before confession, one of the things you'll see I believe it's under the First Commandment is that speaking against the church's ministers is something that you would have to go to confession for. So remember, do it charitably in all humility. But again, I do think this is a serious error, which is why I'm doing this stream. So I will unmute Dende and see if he's fine. How are you, Dende?
I'm good. Hello? Is it bad? Is it still like playing like hello? Can you hear me?
I can't hear myself anymore. Oh wait, nope, never mind. I still can. Rip. Back to the mute. I guess Chef Dende's gonna be muted the whole time. Okay, so we're waiting for Bessarion. We're waiting for Bessarion right now. And I have my notes up right now, and I'll pull up the video. So I guess we'll do some work while Bessarion's gone. Get ahead and stuff. Magister Bessarion is live, but somewhat robotic. Where are you, Bessarion? Byzantine Thomist? Oh, Magister Dende. Yeah, well, that's just the playback coming from me. So let's look it up. Reason and Theology. And I actually want to do responses to each one of these clips because I do think Palomism is extremely dangerous, and that the history of the theologians of the church have recognized that and have denounced it as something which is heretical. So I do think it is a very big issue, and this isn't something where I'm making a mountain out of a molehill. Okay, Dende, we're going to try again. Hi, Dende.
Hello. Is it still playing back, or can you actually hear me now?
Hey, testing.
Hello.
I actually don't. No, I don't think I hear myself. Okay, you're good.
I'm gonna do a based and red-pilled maneuver. I'm gonna put my phone on my bed. Does that remove some of like the playback?
It does.
Okay.
Okay, so why don't you just have him on? I didn't think of asking him. I didn't think he'd want to be on my humble little Militant Thomist channel. But I guess, if he's open to it, I'd be glad. Get Bessarion on here and have a little nice chit chat.
Bro, no.
Okay, so.
Do mushrooms freak you out?
No.
Yes.
But it's no wonder shrooms get a.
Okay, so let me see what I got in my notes. So we're going to start at about 2:50. 2 minutes and 50 seconds. Let's hope Magister Bessarion is here soon. Okay. So I think there's kind of three issues that I want to cover here, and then Bessarion's going to have his own stuff to cover, more about the Franciscan tradition. I can still hear myself, Dende. You might need to like go on and off.
Okay. Yeah. Fair. No, I'll
Mute,
do
mute,
that.
unmute.
Like when I'm not talking, I'll just like mute my mic. Okay.
Okay, based. Byzantine SCOTUS is a gigachad. That's so true. Okay, so yes, the three things I want to go over. So first is the idea about the magisterial teaching on the object of the beatific vision. So what we see in the beatific vision. That's really what this whole video is about. And then the second one is going to be specifically the use of intuitive in Benedictus Deus, because very significantly, I don't think it's at all proving what the Kappes is saying that it's proving. And then third, this is where Bessarian's gonna shine right here. But the claim that the Franciscan view of the object of the beatific vision is somehow different, in that the Franciscan tradition didn't condemn as heretical the Palamite view of not only the essence energies distinction, but also of the beatific vision, because it's explicit in some of their best manuals. Isn't the original video a little old? Yes. Full videos with Yabara, Lofton, Albrick. Yes. Okay. Do you have anything to add, Dende, or should we get right into it?
Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Okay. Well, I mean, if I'm being honest, I'm not exactly sure just how much Father Kappes. I mean, he's been to seminary, so I assume that he has read a bit. But he seems to, as far as I can tell from some of his writings and some of the videos that he's done, but he seems to kind of not only like say that the Franciscans and Palamites are like holding to a teaching that is so similar that they don't like consider one another heretical, but actually like it actually seems to be like he kind of thinks they're one and the same. I'm not sure exactly how similar he thinks they are, but like he'll go and say like, well, the Thomists believe this, and they'll condemn the Easterners for believing opposite of them, but they would also have to like condemn the Franciscans, which is just not true. But he kind of seems to equate like the view of Palamos with the view of like the Scotists, which is a bit odd. Yeah, no, that's about all that I would add. You covered it pretty well.
Okay, good. So, okay, there's some fun. Is the video public? Yes, this is a public video, in case you were wondering. So, I guess we can get right into it. I'm going to make sure I turn it down to normal speed. Yes. Okay, closed captioning for us boomers. And let's get on.
And Aquinas, Franciscan tradition. So what does that mean essentially? We can't speak with the same terms. What are we saying with beatific vision? Well, Palamas is not going to deny that the energies are essential. So essence is a noun, it's a substantive, and it means the God stuff, right? Whatever it is that's most God, that's what we mean by his essence. And then if we talk about things that are essential to his essence, or ideas or notions or realities that are essential to his essence, you see I'm switching there from the logical to the metaphysical. But let's talk about essential items or essential realities or essentialia, as we might call them in Latin. What this means is an essence can be rich enough where there can be realities in it which are co-existent, that is co-inexistent, that is that they come penetrate, kind of like dye penetrates water and you can't tell where the water and the dye are different. So an energy compenetrates the essence and it is contained, so to speak, in the essence. And so you can't really divide the two. So if Palamas were to say something like, I see the wisdom of God, but I don't see the essence of God. He is seeing the essential wisdom of God. So to that extent, it is a participation in an essential reality of God, but it's not a participation in the fullness of God, of how he sees himself, his infinitude of being. We can understand wisdom because that can be shared with us in a finite mode. And so what we're saying here is that the way that the Palamite discussions go in some quarters, is to admit that everything that is said about God's energies is said about essential energies, never things that are separate from the essence, but are contained within, co-infant with, realities that are inseparable from the essence. Now, we're not satisfied with that in some Western quarters, because we want to say that the essence and the so-called activities are so united that if you see the essence of God, you see all these, what can be said of these activities, you just see them as one simple whole. That's simply not the theory that's adopted by Palamas. So how do I summarize then Palamas' position? You can see essential realities that are not divorced from God's essence. They are essential realities in God's essence. Is it the same as seeing the essence itself? No, it is not. Is it a participation in divine being? It is. Can we make sense of it in the Western tradition? The Franciscans, of course, did. Does the West, by and large, when they talk about the beatific vision today, any of that in the background of their minds or in their discussions? No, they don't. By and large, the Thomistic narrative and a more stringent Franciscan narrative seem to be a very diverse language from what Palamas is doing. Now, what I will say is this.
Okay, so I'm going to stop it right there. So, Bersarian left. Okay, he's back now. Hi, Bersarian. How you doing?
Hi, I'm okay. How are you?
I'm doing beautifully. So what we're going to do in this first part is we are going to be talking about whether the magisterium and the tradition of the theologians requires that we can speak of seeing certain essential notes, as he describes it, essential energies or essential objects, or whether we have to say that, yes, we see the essence of God in the beatific vision through the Lumen Gloriae. So that's kind of the first part. And I have I do have some notes here, because in Catholic theology, there's a distinction, and to explain the question at hand, with the object of what we see in the beatific vision, between what's called the primary object of the beatific vision, which is seen directly, primarily, simply, and that's the divine essence. So Florence describes this. They see clearly God himself, 1 and 3, as he is in himself. And then there's what's called the secondary object of the beatific vision. That's what's seen accidentally, indirectly, virtually, secundum quid. And that's all of creation, because God, as cause of all creation, contains in himself eminently all that exists. So in seeing the beatific vision, we are able to have a certain knowledge of all of creation. That's actually how the intercession of the saints works. That's how saints in heaven are able to hear our prayers, through having the beatific vision. So there's an interesting polemical point for you. But so the question at hand is going to be of the primary object of the beatific vision. That is what we see directly, primarily, and simply. Whether it is the total essence, or as Father Kappes says, the energies, or essential energies, as he wants to say. So from Florence, which I just quoted, again, they see clearly God himself, 1 and 3, as he is in himself. As he is implying clearly the essence of God, and even includes that we see the relations. That is, that God himself, 1 and 3, is what we see. And then in what they're going to bring up later, which I think this is a huge mistake, even bringing up Benedictus Deus on their part, because if you just look at Benedictus Deus and just Control F divine essence through that thing, and it is it is a lot of uses. That, for example, those after the death of Lord Jesus Christ have seen and see the divine essence by intuitive vision and even face to face with no mediating creature, serving in the capacity of an object seen, but divine essence immediately revealing itself plainly, clearly, and openly to them, and seeing thus they enjoy the same divine essence. And also that from such vision and enjoyment, their souls, which now have departed, are truly blessed, and they have eternal life and rest. And also the souls of those who afterwards will depart will see that same divine essence and will enjoy it before the general judgment. And that such vision of the divine essence, and then so on and so forth, using essence a lot of times. It's plenty of times. And then also, in the later magisterium under Benedict XIV, the Greek view, which he is describing, Palamas's view, is actually condemned by Benedict XIV. So, quote, that man, too, would betray his ignorance of ecclesiastical history, who did not know that the union with the Orientals, that is, the Easterners, confirmed that they would accept the dogma of the procession of the Holy Spirit from the Father and the Son, and add to the creed the word filioque, that they would admit that both leavened and unleavened bread was matter for the sacrament of the Eucharist, and they would accept the dogma of purgatory, of the beatific vision, and of the primacy of the Roman pontiff. In a word, that every care was taken to overthrow all errors opposed to the Catholic faith. But there was never any question of causing harm to the venerable Oriental rite. So we do not want to cause harm to the Oriental rite. That's not what we're trying to do. We're not trying to cause harm to the Eastern rites. We're completely fine with that. What we're concerned with is bringing in substantial errors against certain defined dogmas of the faith, such as the seeing of the divine essence of the beatific vision. And then further, when you see later magisterial teaching on our Lord's beatific vision that he had, it teaches that our Lord in the beatific vision knew all members of himself, which can only be known through the divine essence, as Pope Pius XII taught in Mystici Corporis. For hardly was he conceived in the womb of the Mother of God when he began to enjoy the beatific vision, and in that all the members of his mystical body were continually and unceasingly present to him, and he embraced them with his redeeming love. So it's kind of from conclusion, we can reason back to the premise. The fact that there is those secondary objects of the beatific vision, there has to be, they have to see that divine essence wherein there is that causing of their existence. So also, if we look at the schoolmen, among the schoolmen, there is absolutely no debate on this issue. And Bessarian's going to bring this up a bit later, but there is no debate on this issue. All affirm that the object of beatitude is the essence, attributes, and relations of God, and that it is contained in revelation. So this at least reaches the note of theologically certain, which I would actually say is being a bit light. I think it's higher than theologically certain when it comes to the theological note. Because
actually, if I could interject here, I actually believe the STS uses that it is of the Catholic faith.
Yes. I was about to get to that, because some say theologically certain, but the STS, I can never pronounce his name. How do you pronounce his name? Tanquerey. Tanquerey. It's like such a weird name. And then also Ott, they give the note of de fide to the idea that the object of the beatific vision is the divine essence. So the opposite of de fide is that term heretical. So to deny the seeing of the beatific vision is at least an error in theology, which would be against something which is theologically certain. But I actually myself would lean more towards the idea expressed being heretical and against something which is de fide. And then while this may seem a bit radical, if you look throughout the manuals explicitly over and over for centuries, even before this, ever since we knew about Palamism in the West, the quote Palamists of the 14th century are listed as adversaries of this thesis and are condemned as being heretical. And an example is found in Father Lagrange's commentary on Prima Pars. He said, quote, but particularly the 14th century Palamists denied the possibility of the beatific vision, maintaining that the divine nature as it is in itself cannot even be supernaturally seen by the created intellect. And further in the STS, quote, Palamites are hesychasts, Greek separatists in the 14th century, so named from Gregory Palamos, and from the semi-quietist contemplation which they advocated, were finally condemned of heresy by the Orthodox, which I have no idea what they're talking about with that. They taught that the saints in heaven do not see the divine substance, but only a certain splendor, indeed uncreated, but distinct from God himself, and similar to the light that surrounded the Lord in the Transfiguration. This error is attributed also to the Armenians in the document Iam Dudum of Benedict XII. Also in Pole, the heresy of the Palamites is condemned. So this is, as I'm just referencing sources, this is something which is universally, even in something as late as the 1950s, which would have been the STS was in the 1950s. And then if I'm remembering correctly, Father Lagrange was writing in the 1930s when it came to his Summa commentaries. So, and then Pole was used up to Vatican II. Ott, obviously. All these guys, this isn't reaching back to random 18th century sources. This is early 20th century, mid 20th century even, that there was a clear understanding of the heresy of Palamism, which included their doctrine of the beatific vision when it came to the specific object of the beatific vision. But there is a debate between the Thomists, who profess the essential object of beatitude was God, and that essential object of beatitude, this is going to be important because everybody agrees on the object of beatitude, but when it comes to the essential object of beatitude, which is a debate between the primary and secondary. So the Thomists say, as God is one and three, that is, all attributes and personal relations. And then others who had the primary and sufficient object be the essence of God abstracted from the relations, the persons being considered as the secondary object. And then the SDS gives everybody's views. So according to his essence, leaving to one side his relations, and at the same, either without his attributes, as Scotus seems to think, as distinguishing the attributes from the essence, or according to the attribute of goodness, as Medina seems to think, or according to any attribute apprehended perfectly enough, according to Arriaga, or with all his attributes according to Suarez and Pesch. So really, there's this debate over what is the primary, sufficient, and essential, and it's really a debate over sufficiency that the medieval scholastics get into. But everybody is going to agree that when we see when we have the beatific vision, that God, his essence, and relations are all included somehow, whether they are primary and sufficient or as secondary objects in the beatific vision. And this seems to be what we'll get later on, what the debate that Father Kappes is misunderstanding. He is totally misunderstanding this debate as thinking that Scotus is denying that we see the relations. If you read through the, I think it's in the first book of his Ordinatio, Distinction 3, Question 2, if I'm remembering correctly off the top of my head. If you read through and can understand what he's saying, it is clear that he's talking about what the sufficient and essential object is, not questioning whether it is an object or not. These are just some of the weird questions that some of these guys will get into. But Father Kappes seems to be misunderstanding this. So that is what I have. Any comments from either of you two?
Should I talk about the letters?
Yeah. Go ahead if you want to talk about the letters.
Yeah, cool. So, well, I'm Bessarion from Twitter, and a while ago I wrote a thread talking about Palamas and Catholic theologians, because I was talking to an Orthodox on Twitter, and then he claimed that no Catholic theologian or respectable clergy had ever claimed Palamism is heretical or leads to polytheism, which is ridiculous. So I wrote an entire thread listing a lot of theologians that I could remember, scholastics and from every school of thought that condemned Palamism. And this thread that I wrote was not a thread about an opinion that I have. I was not defending a point of view. I was defending I was just explaining a fact that Orthodox didn't get, that Palimism has always been condemned as a heretical view of God by every Catholic theologian that commented, that talked about Palamas, or his view about the beatific vision or the essence energy distinction. Every Catholic theologian that talked about this condemned it as heretical among the scholastics, right? So I compiled a lot of theologians that talked about this, and posted this thread on Twitter, right? And then a friend of mine sent this thread to Father Kappes, and Father Kappes, he tried to respond to my thread. I honestly don't see why he would be responding to my thread, because my thread is not, I'm not exposing an opinion I have. I'm not defending a point of view. I'm just explaining the undeniable fact that Palimism has been condemned as heretical by every scholastic Catholic theologian. And then when Father Kappes responded to me, I was surprised by how many mistakes he made in his response. Like he demonstrated very clearly that he has no idea about Scotism or the Franciscan view about the essence of God, or the beatific vision, right? I could quote a lot of examples, a lot of mistakes, a lot of very basic mistakes that he made in his letters. Like, for example, he said that a real distinction according to the Franciscan tradition, but not for the Dominican, the real distinction does not admit separability, right? So according to Kappes, for the Franciscans, a real distinction does not admit separability, but for the Dominican, it does. And then he concludes that this implies that the expression real distinction are equivocal terms for both scholastic traditions. This is completely absurd. This is a fallacy, and the premise that for the Franciscans a real distinction does not admit separability, but for the Dominicans it does, it's false. And this is a very basic mistake. This is a mistake that anyone that has read a Franciscan talking about this or a Dominican talking about this would know this is false, right? Because, for example, for the Dominicans, there is no defined position on this topic, right? Domingo Banhas, in his commentary on Prima Pars, in his Scholastica commentary, he explains how the Dominicans are divided about this, how the Thomists are divided about this. Two examples of two opposing views would be Soto, who in his commentary on the sentences, he defends that a real distinction does imply a separability, but Cajetan does not defend that. He claims that a real distinction does not necessarily mean that two things are separable, right? If two things are really distinct, it doesn't mean that these two things are separable. And later followers of Cajetan, like Didacus Massieu, they developed this concept a lot. For example, he distinguishes two kinds of real distinctions: metaphysical real distinctions and physical real distinctions. And physical real distinctions do require separability, but metaphysical real distinctions don't. Right? So, like, there's no defined position among Dominicans and Thomists for this topic. And Kappes is wrong to say that there is a Dominican position about this. And he's claimed that according to the Franciscan tradition, a real distinction does not admit separability is completely false. If you read any Franciscan, any manual written by a Franciscan talking about the essence and existence distinction, they will argue against the essence and existence real distinction by saying that they are not separable, right? Trombetta, in his commentary on Aristotle's Metaphysics, he uses the argument against Cajetan, and basically every other Franciscan follows Trombetta on this. They believe that a real distinction does require separability, and since essence and existence are not separable, they are not really distinct. So like this kind, in Father Kappes, he makes like those mistakes very frequently. There are lots and lots of those kind of mistakes that make like it seems that he has no clue at all what he's talking about. And for another example would be like he said that I am claiming that Scotists are heretics because they are like Gilbert de la Paix, and Palamites are heretics because they are like Joachim de Fiore. This is completely false. You can take the Franciscans and the Scotists that I list on my thread, and they argue against the Palamites by citing the condemnation to Joachim de Fiore and Gilbert de la Paix, like Juan de Consuegra, who was a Franciscan and a Scotist. He condemns the Palamites using that condemnation, and Josepho Tubring, who was also a Franciscan and a Scotist, and he cites precisely the condemnations of Gilbert de la Paix and Joachim de Fiore to condemn them, and say that the Palamite theology is to be considered heretical according to Catholic theology, right? So now going on to Kappes' view on beatific vision, I haven't watched the video in its entirety that Wagner is commenting on, but I read an article by Father Kappes, and a very important point that Kappes makes during the article is that according to in Benedict XII's definition of beatific vision, there is no definition, no precise definition of what intuitive vision of God means, right? And therefore, you can kind of twist the words and then come to the conclusion that the Palamite view can be acceptable as long as you interpret that intuitive vision as meaning through the energies. But this is completely false, because Benedict XII defines in that document, in Benedictus Deus, what intuitive vision of God's essence means. I'll take, for example, I will cite here a Scotist, a Franciscan called Josepho Arcangelo, who wrote a course of theology, and he comments on this, and he defines the terms in a very precise way, and Benedict XII follows him precisely. So Josepho says the following, quote, "There are two kinds of vision, one corporeal, one intellectual." And the first definition is, corporeal vision is the action of the bodily eye, which apprehends an external body. The second definition is, intellectual vision is the action of the mind, which is spiritual, perceives what is abstract. And here the theologians distinguish abstractive vision and intuitive vision. The third definition is abstractive vision, which is that by which one object is known to someone through another object as a medium. It is this kind of vision that the apostle has in mind in Romans 1:20, when he says, through creation, God's invisible qualities, his eternal power and divine nature, are clearly seen. And the fourth definition is intuitive vision, which is that by which the object is immediately known in itself as it is, face to face. Right? So this is what Josepho, who's a Scotist and a Franciscan, this is how he defines intuitive vision and abstractive vision. This is very, very clear for anyone familiar with scholastic psychology, that these terms are very clearly defined. Intuitive vision is when an object is immediately known in itself, and abstractive vision is when an object is known to someone through another object as a medium.
One's going to be dimensive, discursive reasoning, sort of abstracting from premise to conclusion. Because this word intuitive, although the same exact terminology isn't used by St. Thomas, intuitive, yes, exactly, Latin word, but isn't used by St. Thomas. But similar language and concepts are used when he talks about the mode of angelic intellection, because it's going to be something which is without discursive reasoning.
Right. So here I quoted the precise words of a Scotus, a Franciscan, right? But these definitions, they coincide with any definition given by a Dominican or a Jesuit. Oh, and by the way, Josepho, right after that, when he is listing the errors regarding the beatific vision, he says that among the heretics are the anthropomorphists, some Gentiles, Palamites, and the Armenians. So
what do you think
Scotus.
what do you think about the idea that the Franciscan that there's some sort of Franciscan school that is separate from the Thomists when it comes to the object of the beatific vision that we can kind of fit Palamas into, or Palamism
Well,
at least?
it's completely ridiculous to try to fit Palamas among the Franciscans. It makes no sense at all. Every single Franciscan that ever commented on Palamas was to condemn his views. It's completely absurd to say that the Franciscan view can be somehow, that Palamas can be reconciled with the Franciscans. Like Joseph Turing, a Franciscan, mentioned Palamas in his Dissertatio Theologica Dogmatica Scholastica, and he claims Palamas was a heretic who wanted to consuegra another Franciscan, a Scotist. In his cursus, he says that the Palamite monks made an insurrection against the eternity of God. Josepho, that I just quoted, says that the Palamites are one of the group of heretics that deny the Catholic doctrine of the intuitive vision of the essence of God. So it's completely ridiculous to try to fit in Palamas among them.
Oh yeah, you have one that you sent in the Discord, Thurning. Palamas' sentence of a real distinction among God's essence and his operations is a foolish and impious error.
Yes. So those definitions that I gave from Josepho, they are precisely the same definitions given by any other theologian. You can pick, for example, a Jesuit, Joseph Monchai. He also defines, when he's commenting on beatific vision, he defines the terms in the exact same way. And if you go to Benedict XII's Benedictus Deus, and you read what he says about intuitive vision, he defines it precisely like those scholastics. He says, quote, "These souls have seen and see the divine essence with an intuitive vision, and even face to face, without the mediation of any creature by way of objective vision. Rather, the divine essence immediately manifests itself to them, plainly, clearly, openly." Yeah, so, and he keeps going. So it's precisely the same definition. There's no doubt about it. And every single Catholic theologian, every scholastic that commented on this question, on the Palamite view of the beatific vision, was to condemn Palamas, right? I can cite Gotti, who I also cited on my thread on Twitter, who was a Dominican, a Thomist. He was highly respected. He almost became Pope. He's one of the greatest Thomists of all time, and he lists among the error of the Greeks, who was created by Gregory Palamas. And then he explains the error of Palamas and contrasts it with the Catholic belief that the created intellect can see the lumen gloria and in fact sees the essence of God in itself. Also, of course, Batavius, a classic example of a Catholic theologian who explains the Palamite theology in depth and condemns Palamas as a heretic. And he even says that, he says the following, quote, "Among those who openly defended that the divine nature cannot be seen as it is in itself, even by the blessed souls, we have those old thinkers who asserted either obscurely or more clearly, as I showed above. And we have, of more recent memory, the Greeks and the Armenians. Concerning both, Richard Rolfe, Archbishop of Armagh, is a witness in Book 14 of the Armenian Question first chapter. Among the Greeks, Gregory Palamas was the most vigorous defender of this faction in his novelty, and was their coryphaeus, whose history in ridiculous dogmatic theology I describe it in the first book of this work. Right. So, and Petavius later on he contrasts the Palamite view with the Catholic theology of an intuitive vision of the essence of God against the Palamite notion of the beatific vision. And also Perron, very, very interestingly, Perron, who is a very known theologian, in his De Deo Creatore, he says the following, quote, "The blessed in the supernatural heaven see the essence of God intuitively." And then he keeps going. "This article of faith was defined by the Council of Florence in Acts 22. And the same was also defined by Benedict XII. I put this thesis forward against the Palamites, who claim that the blessed do not see God as he is in himself, nor in his essence, nor supernaturally, but abstractively." Right? So here is a Catholic theologian citing Benedict XII and the Council of Florence against the Palamites. And every theologian that comments on this does the same. Bilwar, in his Summa Summae, he says the following: "I say that the created intellect can see God supernaturally as he is in himself. This is against the Palamites and the Armenians, and against them it was defined in the Council of Florence in the decree of union given to the Armenians that the souls which are purged in heaven intuitively, see God intuitively as he is in himself in heaven, 3 in 1 as he is. The same is defined by Benedict XII." Right? So every Catholic theologian who interpreted this document by Benedict XII interpreted as a condemnation of the view of the Armenians and the Palamites that we do not see intuitively the essence of God in heaven. Right? So there is absolutely no doubt about this interpretation. You can take any book on the theological loci, like Melchior Cano's book or Perron's book. They will always say that the consensus among the schoolmen provides a theologically certain argument.
Yes.
So this is there's no doubt about this interpretation of Benedict XII's document. It is a defined thing within Catholicism.
Okay, so Bessarion, Benedictus Intellectus, which is our common friend, he said that Kappes will refer that they didn't have good texts of Palamas. He'll usually out on things like that, or will say Palamas wasn't clear enough in his terms. And okay, so my initial thought, Bessarion, is that we may actually consider, because this is exactly what the Jansenists did when they tried to defend their error and said that Jansenius actually was a heretic. So could we consider the condemnations, such as from who was it, Benedict XIV? Could we say, and then also Benedict the 12th, at least the SDS says in a different document, could we say that would be a certain dogmatic fact that is being brought forward?
Well, so first of all, it's completely false that those authors that I quoted didn't have access to Palamas's work. Petavius quotes Palamas a lot. Petavius was able to read Greek. Frenzelin, who also says a lot of things against Palamas, he was able to read Greek. They cite the original works of Palamas directly. They mention where they find the works of Palamas. Natalis Alexander also quotes Palamas directly. The works of Palamas, they were present among the scholastics in Greek. They were able to read Greek. So like there's no doubt that they were able to access Palamas' original writings and analyze it. Right. So yeah, what was the other question again? Sorry.
Oh, it's usually, or that he wasn't clear enough in his terms.
Yeah, Palamas was obscure in his theology, certainly, and he didn't think as clearly as a scholastic would think, because of course, the scholastics had a very precisely defined set of words and expressions to use and explain what kind of distinction exists among any two objects, right? Palamas didn't have a very precise set of words to use, right? But in any case, the scholastic terms are very clearly defined, right? We have a real distinction being very clearly defined, which is, of course, oh, by the way, when Kappes says that the expression real distinction was defined equivocally among Dominicans and Franciscans, it is of course, a fallacy, because since if the Dominicans and Franciscans, they do not have the same understanding of how two really distinct objects interact, like according to him, Franciscans believe that they do not require separability. It doesn't mean that they are equivocal, right? Because otherwise, like if we have different concepts, different consequences of a definition, it doesn't mean that the term is equivocal. Like, for example, Dominicans and Franciscans, they certainly believe in the same God. But it's not because the Franciscans believe that the attributes of God are formally distinct and the Dominicans believe they are virtually distinct, that they believe in different gods, right? It doesn't mean that the word God is equivocal, right? So Kappes commits a fallacy when he says that it should mean that the expression real distinction is equivocal for Dominicans and Franciscans.
So Bessarion, would you say there's, besides the discussion I brought up when it came to the necessary, essential primary object of the beatific vision, would you say there's even any debate when it comes to the object of the beatific vision? He was making it sound like you had some an extreme Franciscan party, a scotistic party, a moderate Franciscan party, and then you had the evil Thomists who were lobbing arrows of heresy and wanted to burn him at the stake. So is that even fair? Because I haven't seen anybody discuss anything except what I just brought up when it came to.
No, not at all. I read a lot of Franciscans. I am very interested in reading Scotists. I love the Scotist theology. I'm not a Scotist, but I love reading Scotists. I read a lot of Scotists, a lot of old dogmatic treatises written by Scotists, scholastic treatises written by Scotists, and I have never seen such a distinction that Kappes makes among an extreme Franciscan party and a moderate Franciscan party. It makes no sense at all. They are all unanimous in condemning Palamism. Every Franciscan that talks about Palamas is to condemn him, never to say, "Oh, wait, maybe this guy is right in some points. Maybe we can reconcile our view with his." So there is no such a distinction that Kappes makes.
So when it comes to the specific note that's given, the theological note that's given concerning the object being the essence. So however you want to, is that day, would you say that's
I have
day
to
fide?
go.
You have to go.
But
one last question.
Is.
Would you see it's de fide defina et catholica, or how would you give the note to that?
Certainly, yes. It's de fide divina et catholica. Yes, no, there's no doubt about it. Any treatise written about the development of dogmas, any author who talked about the development of dogmas like Morin Sola or Salavehi or Cartacini, any of those authors would certainly say that the definition in this topic is dogmatic and de fide. It can't be denied without heresy. So, yeah.
Okay, thank you, Bessarion.
All right, thank you so much.
I will talk to you later. Okay, it's
Go
just
off,
Dendana. Bro, he went off.
He went off, bro. That was a go-off moment.
Yeah, and
that was, by the way, just letting you know, that was a 30-minute long go-off moment.
Really? Wow. So
yes.
And everybody listening, I'm going to in the description below You're going to have Bessarian's thread on this, on Palamas being called a heretic by Catholic theologians. So make sure you go there, read that if you want all of the sources. Make sure you give Bessarian a follow. I know he doesn't post as much as he used to, but he has some really good threads that you all check out. But we are going to, after that brief intercession, we are going to continue on. Do you have anything to say, Dende?
No, I'm actually impressed because he brought more things than he was planning, which is crazy.
There you go. Okay, I think so. Next, I don't think I even need to cover how there's that Franciscan view, because as we've established, the Franciscans weren't debating over what the object of beatific vision was. They were debating about primary and secondary, and then necessary objects and stuff like that. But they were not debating over whether we saw the relations, which are going to be the persons of the Trinity in it, or whether we just see the essence abstracted, or whether we see the energies. That's not what they were debating at all. But if you want to read for yourself, it's in. I was actually correct. No, I was wrong. It's going to be in his Ordinatio, Book 1, Distinction 1, Question 2, and I have a little quote from here. So as to this article, I say that speaking about the absolute power of God, there seems to be no contradiction in the possibility that, on the part of the intellect and on the part of the will, the act of each be terminated by the essence and not by the person, or terminated by one person and not another. To wit, that the intellect see the essence and not the person, or to see one person and not another, and that the will enjoy the essence and not the person, or enjoy one person and not another. So obviously, Scotus isn't here saying, oh, actually, you only see one person, or actually, you see the essence abstracted from the persons, or actually, you don't see the essence and you only see the persons. That's not what he's saying here. He's saying he is writing about the possibility of what might be done. So this is really a theoretical question that he's asking himself about how what is necessary for the beatific vision. It's dead obvious if you read the article. If you just actually, I did print this. So if you get let me grab this. Volume 2 of the Ordinatio that I've edited on enjoyment. It's in here. Distinction 1, Question 2. So if you read that, it's pretty obvious that it's talking about a possibility and not some sort of actuality that's going. So that's going to clear up that. And then to finish off, I want to watch another like 2 minutes of this, and then talk about intuitive a bit, and kind of explain a bit what Bessarian was getting at. Okay, so everybody is. Oh, Dende is gay. Oh, rip. Trolled. Dende's trolled. Okay.
Wait, what? What happened?
No. This guy, whoever he is, said that Dende is gay.
Oh, I wonder who that is.
I have no idea.
I don't know who that is either. I wonder.
Is the discussion of the
I'm going to put it back
beatific
like 10 seconds.
seem to be a very diverse language from what Palamas is doing. Now, what I will say is this, is the discussion of the beatific vision in the West is oftentimes overlooked, because when I believe it's, Benedict XII and Benedictus Deus, is that right?
Yes, that's correct.
He has this strange non-Thomistic language when he talks about seeing God, and it's intuitive, which is...
Wait, this guy wrote a journal article on Benedictus Deus, and you just ask Michael Lofton if he got the name right? Okay, I'm not going to ignore it. I'm just going to ignore it.
Because when I believe it's, Benedict XII and Benedictus Deus, is that right?
Yes, that's correct.
He has this strange non-Thomistic language when he talks about seeing God, and it's intuitive, which is intuitive. If you've done any studies in medieval studies or the history of metaphysics in the West, the whole idea of intuitive knowledge of the divine essence is totally non-Thomistic. I've looked for the word intuere and intuitive in Thomas. I think I found the verb, not the intuitive, the verb maybe 2 or 3 times. So what we're talking about is a 14th century expression of Benedict XII, who claims that we see the essence of God intuitively, which does not commit us, in my mind, to some very, very stringent notion of what even that beatific vision is. Is it possible to make room for a Franciscan, a very extreme Franciscan position on the beatific vision, even that goes beyond Scotus? I would say yes, because that we simply haven't had a historical study to show us if there is a text upon which Benedict XII is restricting the sense of the beatific vision to meaning only something like what Thomas Aquinas would argue.
Can I
no, you
interject
would,
here,
then it
or
sounds
is do you want to
Oh
keep
no,
it going?
literally like 10 seconds left.
Like what Thomas
Okay,
Aquinas.
okay.
Yeah. So you would, then it sounds like you would say that the Eastern tradition here and the Catholic traditions can be reconciled.
Well, they can be reconciled if you say, is there a Catholic position that can be reconciled with what is the predominant Orthodox position? Yes. If you're asking me as a dogmatic theologian, provided that we all accept that every autocephalous Orthodox church and Orthodoxy today would embrace as an official policy Palinism as the only.
Okay, yeah, I guess we could just stop there. Okay.
Okay.
So intuitive.
Is it okay if I kind of go in a little bit or no? Do you want to do this?
Oh, go and do what?
Well, I was
Leave?
just going to point out. No, I was just going to point out a few errors that he made, actually.
Okay, yeah, go ahead.
Yeah. So one error is that he states that we really don't know what is meant by intuitive, which, as has been demonstrated, obviously by the people here, that's completely false. But even if we didn't really know what he meant by intuitive, let's say he was using a vague word, okay? Let's just say, for example, Kappes is right and he's being very vague. Well, then after the fact, when you have a bunch of theologians that are talking about what is meant here, you have to take their position. Even if you think that that's a vague wording there and you don't know what it really means, the theologians that are commenting on that document, and they're all agreeing on it, have the proper interpretation, and you would have to hold to that view. You can't deviate from that view of the document. It's not acceptable. And then he goes on to say, actually, it's okay to reconcile the majority opinion of the Orthodox, which is the real distinction between essence and energies. So they're okay to reconcile the majority position with the Catholic faith, which is completely wrong. That's erroneous, and it's actually dangerous to people. You would be denying dogmas by doing that, okay? You can go now. I'm sorry.
Okay, no, you're good. So what I have Benedictus Deus up right now, and then obviously, as I said before, gosh, this is a really long run-on sentence. This is a massive sentence. But have seen and see the divine essence by intuitive vision, and even face-to-face with no mediating creature, serving the capacity of an object seen, but divine essence immediately revealing itself plainly, clearly, and openly to them. And seeing thus, they enjoy the same divine essence, and also that from such vision enjoyment, their souls, which now have departed, are truly blessed and have eternal life and rest. So that's what they're getting in a little discussion about. It says intuitive vision. So it's clear from the context. If you go on further, it says, and that such vision of the divine essence and its enjoyment makes void the acts of faith and hope in them. So what's happening here is that intuitive vision up there, you can't see my screen, but up like a sentence before, is being compared with acts of faith and hope, which that intuitive vision are making void. So what is going on here? So the differences between faith and hope and then intuitive vision is that faith and hope are things which are done through certain mediating objects. So through the let's say the voice of a preacher is in contemplating these various articles of faith being presented before you assent with the assent of faith, and then the various doctrines which inspire hope. You may have hope in God. So there's some sort of mediating object. So what intuitive means is intuitive, and St. Thomas uses similar language in Summa Contra Gentiles for the way in which we do not know God in this life, but the way in which the angels know. So that's the prologue to Summa Contra Gentiles, book 4. That's where he uses intuitively. Intuitive is compared with faith and hope, and intuitive is also compared with the process of discursive reasoning, wherein we reason from the objects in front of us to gain some sort of knowledge of God through the way of eminence, the analogous way, and then the negative way. So all intuitive means is that without discursive reasoning, we are able to see God. That's what intuitive vision means. So to pretend, and this honestly was the most confusing part of this to me, to pretend that a description of the mode of the subject knowing. So this isn't even talking about the object. So I have no idea why this is even relevant in a discussion of the object of the beatific vision. So a certain description of the mode of the subject knowing allows the I don't even know how, like the spaceship of palimism to just get squeezed into the tiny needle hole of Catholic theology. Like how are you squeezing palimism into a specific description about the mode of the subject knowing, where you haven't been able to find the source that he was running off of? I don't know. Dende, can you understand what would be going on here? How this even follows? I don't understand how the argument even works.
No, I don't know what
not at all. So and then this same idea actually of intuitive vision. Oh, you gotta mute. Okay, good. You muted yourself. So the same idea of intuitive vision is in Prima Pars, question 12, article 10. I'm going to bring that up real quick. The same idea of intuitive vision is obviously present. It's not present in so many words, but it doesn't need to be present in so many words. It's some like weird sort of philological analysis of origin texts. This is extremely weird. In Catholic theology, we work on the level of truth and not necessarily who has not necessarily some sort of, and I know I hate using this word in this way, but some sort of think of the way that nominalism is thought of by your average Twitter tradcath. That's the way in which it's being used here. Some sort of like weird nominalism that's going on here with being obsessed with the definitions about specific words rather than the realities which they are signs signifying. It's very weird. Okay, so same idea. You're going to see it right away when I read this. Right here. It's in the Respondeo. The question is whether those who see the essence of God see all they see in at the same time. So I answer that what is seen in the word is not successively, but at the same time, in proof whereof we ourselves cannot know many things all at once, for as much as we understand many things by means of many ideas. But our intellect cannot be informed by many diverse ideas at the same time, so as to understand by them, as one body cannot bear different shapes simultaneously. Hence, when many things can be understood by one idea, they are understood at the same time, as the parts of the whole are understood successively, and not all at the same time, if each one is understood by its own idea. Whereas, if all are understood under the one idea of the whole, they are understood simultaneously. Now it was shown above that things seen in God are not seen singly by their own similitude, but all are seen by the one essence of God. Hence, they are seen simultaneously and not successively. This is what intuitive vision is talking about. That's all there is. So if you want to check that out, this is the same idea as being expressed of intuitive vision. So I'm going to stop sharing that real quick. So when you go through the history of the interpretations of intuitive vision, what you have to understand when you get to these scholastic writers, something they like to do, and this is famous in the STS, they have an entire section where they do this. Something they like to do is to define terms. They'll have a thesis, and then they'll have a section where they define the terms of that thesis. So we have plenty of works from Catholic theologians interpreting in their theses, I don't know what the plural of theses. Oh, it would be theses. In their theses on the beatific vision, when they mention intuitive vision, they have entire sections where they're defining what they mean by intuitive vision. And this is through hundreds of different authors you can look at. And all of them, it's basically how St. Thomas defined it in Supercontra Gentiles. It's basically how I just described it. It's the context, as Bessarion brought up and as I just brought up, the context of the statement in Benedictus Deus. It's just a certain mode of the subject knowing. It would be a fallacy to say anything else, because intuitive is often taken in a sort of weird sense when it comes to how we're thinking about the way in which God is known in this world. But an example is found, I just found a random one in the Catholic Encyclopedia. Hence, its natural knowledge of God is necessarily immediate and analogous, since it forms its ideas and judgments about God after an imperfect likeness with its own self and surroundings bear to him. Such is the only means nature offers for inquiring a knowledge of God, and more than this is not due to any created intellect. Consequently, the second and essentially higher way of seeing God by intuitive vision can be a gratuitous gift of divine goodness. So it's the way of knowing God by grace, by glory, versus the way of knowing God in our natural modes of knowing. That's the distinction being made, and there's nothing more than this. And then Paul has a whole section. He just has a whole section where he describes, and I'll just read a short part of this. The expression intuitive vision of God is based on a metaphor which likens the human intellect to the eye. Bodily vision has two peculiarities. First, the eye sees a material object immediately, and second, it perceives it clearly and distinctly. Analogously, we may say that the intuitive vision of God means first that we know him immediately without depending on the created universe as a medium or mirror. Remember, not through any medium. This is right in Benedictus Deus. And secondly, that our knowledge of him is clear and distinct, an apprehension in the proper sense of the word. The quality corresponding in God to our intuitive vision of him is his visibility, which some dogmaticians treat as a separate divine attribute. Okay, so, and then actually, Scotus himself defines intuitive vision, which is very interesting. And is knowledge precisely of a present object as present and of an existing object as existing. So it's a present object as present rather than through the various modes of analogous reasoning whereby we may know God in this world. So very clear. There's really no debate on this. I'm really not sure why it even matters, but I finally found actually a last text by a man named Dahlgaerns, while I was flipping through archive.org, and he's a mid-19th century Jesuit writing a certain work on the sacraments. And he has a whole appendix on how the word intuitive is used. So I'm going to share my notes right now where I have this section. Okay. There we go. I need hardly say that I use the word intuition in the modern and not in the scholastic sense. I'm quite aware that the schoolmen seem to restrict it to an immediate knowledge of an object resulting from its presence. So that's his definition he gives right off the bat. Thus, the beatific vision is called visio intuitiva because it is the vision of God himself immediately presenting to the soul in heaven. The word is also applied to our perceptions of sensible objects. Thus, Durandus defines cognitio intuitiva to be that which tends immediately to a thing that is objectively present, so it accordingly to its actual existence, as when I see a color existing on a wall or a rose which I hold in my hand. Abstractive, so again, this is the discursive we talked about. Abstractive is called any knowledge that is found in a thing not really present in its nature of the object immediately known. As far as I'm aware, it is only sometimes in St. Thomas, as quoted above, and in writers of the mystical schools, that the word is used in a wider sense, like that which it is now used and applied to all immediate knowledge, whether resulting from the presence of the object or not, as for instance, the knowledge of first principles. Thus, Thomas of Jesus says, The intellectual power, insofar as it is called discursive, is called reason. Insofar as it has a simple intuitive apprehension, is called intellectual. It goes on to give instances of this intuitive faculty in remarkable words of secundum. So this is according to St. Thomas in Prima Pars, question 79, Article 12. In the speculative reason, there's a created habit of the soul by which the first principles, naturally understand in speculative terms without discursive knowledge, soon become known to it. From the principles, reason proceeds to the knowledge of conclusions. So again, discursive. Such principles are these and the like. The whole is greater than its parts, and in practical reason, but another habit is created in the soul by which it recognizes the first principles in human activity, so that the good should be obeyed by God, the good preferable to the evil, and so on. This habit, according to Thomas, is called synderesis. Two things seem equally evident from these passages. One, that the word intuition or kindred words are very rarely used by the schoolmen in the modern sense. The other, that the existence of intuitive or even inferential ideas is inculcated by them. To prevent mistakes, the following observation should be added. One, the doctrine that the human mind possesses an intuition of the truth of the existence of God is widely different from the ontologistical theory of ontologism, I can never pronounce anything, means the denial of all ideas intermediate between God and the soul. Intuition, on the contrary, implies a faculty from which the mind, without deductive reasoning, elicits ideas which carry with them their own evidence. So again, it's becoming abundantly obvious, but I guess I'll just finish it up. I think it may be allowed that St. Thomas nowhere asserts and certainly seems to deny that the knowledge of the existence of God is intuitive, even in the modern sense. 3, I have not suppressed what I have said in former editions about the intuitive knowledge of God, because the view is, as I've seen, as far as I've known, a lawful one. It seems to be the theory that God exists is a self-evident proposition only clothed in modern language. Okay, so that is a brief study. And then he goes on to quote other authors if you're interested. So yeah, when it comes to intuitive knowledge, clearly it's something contrasted with deductive, discursive, or abstractive knowledge. Not some. I honestly, I don't even get, even if this wasn't used by Thomas, why this is just like a killer. Because when he denies that God existing is a self-evident proposition, he's denying it according to the our natural knowledge of him. But when it comes to and the last thing I'm going to say, this text becomes very important when it comes to, as he described, ontologism. Dende, do you remember how to pronounce that word? Ontologism.
Ontologism, I believe.
Ontologism. Okay, good. I can never pronounce anything. But when it comes to the condemnation of ontologism, this text was brought up a lot, and it was used actually to condemn their theories. Benedictus Deus was, because this type of intuitive vision only occurs in the beatific vision and isn't some sort of first and primary idea of being which is present in the mind of all of those existing in the world now. So it becomes, in a sense, interpreted by the magisterium in its condemnations of them. So I'm going to check the chat to see if you guys have any questions. And then if that is all, okay, let me go up a little bit. So I'm only going up to 707. So
well, before you go off, like after we answer the questions, I think I just wanted to say another thing after that, but that's all.
Okay, that's fine. I think energies is a useless term in English, to be honest. Yeah, I don't get why that's used. But yes, pray for each other and pray for me that we will see the beatific vision, where we will see the essence of God. Okay, they're all just kind of having a discussion in here. Okay. anathema. The running analogy behind an intuition is to look at something. The verb intuere means to look at something. It doesn't necessarily mean commonsensical, too easy to understand, i.e., you look or behold something as opposed to abstracting or doing discursive reasoning. Exactly. Okay. Palamos the Hellbound, Palamosi Hesiarch. Since the Eastern Catholics love to sing the anathema so much, they should be made to sing anathemas against their chief heretic, Palamos. So Dende, you said you had some comments.
Yeah, you're about to end the video, right? Or are we going to keep going on?
No, if you have any comments, you can go ahead.
Yeah. Okay. So if it's the end of the video, and I have to say this because we said it earlier, but we'll have to say it again. The only reason that we're able to do this is because of, as you know, and as all of your followers know, Thomas Aquinas says that it's acceptable to respond to your superior in the case of heresy, or I guess in this case we are practically certain that he is saying something dangerous or heretical. And so I just wanted to make sure that if anyone is going to watch this, that we don't approve of any rash attack of Father Kappes or his person, because we want to be respectful. He is a priest and he is a shepherd, and we have to be respectable of that. And so if Father Kappes wanted to maybe respond to this, as we have extended our respect and our reproach of him, and our reproach of what he believes, we would also just like to say that we are not trying to attack him or infuriate him. And so that way, if he wanted to have a discussion, he can do so. And we can have a normal discussion, if you understand what I mean. That's all.
Yeah,
I just wanted to make sure fiery things didn't start up, because here's the thing, right? Because this is an opinion actually held by a lot of Eastern Catholics, and I think it's out of sugarcoating the dogmas so that they can be like, whoa, we're like Eastern Orthodox practically in communion with Rome. So it's easier to accept being an Eastern Catholic. And so I just hope that he takes this not as an attack on the person or an attack on the Eastern Church, but really just an attack on the laxity or the lack of safeguarding that the Eastern Church is doing. We only do this because we love Eastern Catholics, not because we want to disrespect them. That's all.
Yeah. And then also another reason we're able to do this is because of patreon.com/Militant Thomist, to where you I had the money to buy amazing mic. I need to fix the camera though. Camera is not too good. I need to upgrade with that. And then everything I do. So appreciate it if any of you go there, because I will be actually doing more streams just for patrons only, and articles and stuff. So make sure you sign up there. Or if you want a direct donation, militantthomist@gmail.com. That's my PayPal. So there you go. Do any of you plan to refute Dale Tuggy? Who? Just joking. I know who he is. No, not really. I'm more of a anti, because I feel like when it comes to refuting the Unitarians, it's kind of useless, because the Unitarians are usually like the Unitarian Universalists. They don't care about anything anyways. So kind of just seems to be a waste of time. But arguing against Muslims on the Trinity, they actually care. So it's actually kind of fruitful, I think, to argue with them. My position is Benedictus Deus is not only in harmony with Aquinas' formulation, but can even be argued that it is one-to-one, which is why Father Kappes really surprised me with his answer. Yeah, and even then, I don't think this has anything to do with the question at hand, which is the object of the beatific vision. So Muslims get their stuff from Tuggy. It's like when I saw a Protestant tweet that did you see that, Dendy? A Protestant was tweeting about how the Neo-Scholastics were bad, and he quoted Gilson, and I was like, "Oh no, the Protestants found Gilson! No,
Yeah.
Owned. Okay, that's all. I will talk to you guys tomorrow. I don't know what I'm going to do yet tomorrow, but it will be something. I promise you. And remember, it is Trinity Tide, so we worship one God in Trinity in unity.